Here is my Seer Seeker.
Es la hierba de arcoíris.
Esa hierba de arcoíris.
Pretty poor looking, but it survived winter, and there are some new sprouts about to burst out of the stem. And here is a stem that popped near the root system, and it's growing. It's pretty slow, but it's alive and it's growing. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting this how it wants to be, to grow well. And I did trim the top, and I was able to get a stem cutting. At first it rotted basically, but there was enough material that it popped. It made a new shoot, and it rooted, and it's growing fairly well considering it's only in water. This is a few months old now, so you don't give up on the stem cuttings even if it looks like it rotted. I change this water nearly daily. So with the mother plant of this Seer Seeker, I collected all of the leaves. I cut them when they were starting to die back, and I collected maybe, let's say, 8 leaves. They were fairly sized leaves, and I allowed them to dry, and it came out to around 1 gram dried plant material. And over a few weeks I just left it drying, and I got around to having some time to experiment, and I did an alcohol extraction, doing a few pulls with 99% isopropanol. I evaporated it all and then placed around 40 milliliters of water and just took the swig. So here's my report on taking the dried leaves, 1 gram. I started with the Harmala tea of around 250 milligrams of caapi tea, and around 10 minutes later, when I start to feel the effects of the caapi tea, I took the swig of the alcohol extraction from the Seer Seeker. The taste wasn't unpleasant. It wasn't the greatest either. The alcohol extract smelled somewhat like chocolate powder, like cacao powder, and a little bit of cinnamon. It was a smell I didn't expect from it. And within around 20 minutes, I started to feel some effects. I had a very warm flush to my skin and face. And from ingesting something that there's no real reports on, I had a very strong mind rush where I had some heart racing, and my heart rate increased quite a bit. It's somewhat similar to tryptamine. So I had a fairly strong heart rate increase, and around 5 minutes later, 25-minute mark from the caapi tea, my vision started to change a bit. There was somewhat of a glossy, like everything is smooth and bright effect to my vision, similar to like a high gloss paint on the wall. And there was a slight pattern to my vision as well. It wasn't fractals like with DMT containing plants, but it was similar to the effect that you get when you rub your eyes really hard. You close your eyes and you rub it. There's that like rippling black shading effect when you open your eyes, but it was constant, and it somewhat like takes care of your field of vision. There was a very minimal amount of time distortion where everything seemed in my mind, accelerated, but time wasn't passing as much. Somewhat just a regular effect of taking substances that alter your perception. And it seemed to be a wobbling, either like I was drunk or my vision would just wobble a bit from trying to focus on any number of objects. Around the 30-minute mark, I noticed some nausea and I had some minimal gas issues. And there was a tingling effect similar to like ants or when you have a sleepy arm. And there was a tingling effect to my arms, but it wasn't very strong effect. The rush that I got from either the adrenaline or fear of taking an unknown plant had subsided by then. At the 35-minute mark, I closed my eyes to see if there was any effects, and there was some closed-eye visuals. It wasn't fractals like is commonly experienced with DMT-containing plants, but it was similar to like a stack of paper, one on top of the other, like a cube, like a three-dimensional cube, but it was a 2D image. It wasn't exactly in focus. Every time I tried to focus on it to see it better, it would get out of focus, but it had very sharp edges and lines. But it was just white. There was no colors, and it wasn't exactly a static image. Like I said, it was hard to focus on, but it kept pulsating in and out of my closed eye visual field of vision. There was no psychological effects whatsoever. There was no euphoria, and there was no change in perception of thinking. At the 40-minute mark, the eye rubbing effect, like I mentioned, the black shading, it seemed to reduce the effects as from it when it first started. It was still in my vision. You know, the black shading effect, like you see the rocks here in the background. It was basically that shading effect over everything. You wouldn't see the rocks, you would just see the normal image, and there was this black, like rippling effect kind of. It wasn't waves, but just static dark shading. And it seemed to pass a bit, or maybe I just got used to it and it wasn't as noticeable. At the 40-minute mark or 45-minute mark, I noticed I was very clear-headed. There was something still off. I wasn't exactly sober or baseline yet, but I was very clear-headed. The way I would describe it is I was very present, and I had no like afterthoughts, or my mind wouldn't race off or think of something else randomly. 50-minute mark, I can say definitively that there was an effect to this plant using the MAOI of the Armilas. It wasn't extremely strong effect, but it was very, very noticeable. The glossing effect of my vision and the shading effect was very strong at first, and the onset was very, very fast for this plant, with an onset of just around 20 minutes starting to feel effects. But overall, at this dose of 1 gram, it lasted from start to finish maybe 50 minutes to an hour at most. And I am interested in increasing my dosage of this plant in the future. It will take quite a bit since it's not the easiest plant so far in my collection to grow. And yeah, just overall there was no real psychedelic effect. It was more visual, and there was a pattern effect to my vision. I wasn't exactly expecting what I got. I was expecting similar to seeing this pattern or something similar to it from the original reports I read where they would have pattern effects. Maybe I was expecting fractals like with DMT, but considering that with only 1 gram dried, there was quite a noticeable effect. I'm quite interested in increasing my dosage by maybe half a gram or to 1 gram in the future. Since there's little to no information on this plant and there's 0 reports on dosage of either dried or fresh material from anywhere I could find, I always start low. There was a member on DMT Nexus that mentioned that some of the plants in this complex, in this family, I think, of plants, coma something, they're toxic. So I just took extra precautions to not injure myself. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I selected my correct plant from all my research before even experimenting with this, and I am interested to see if I can grow this well. So at the 55-minute mark, I felt some pressure on my left ear, and 5 minutes later it was warm, just warm. It wasn't warm to the touch, it just felt really warm. But after that, it was pretty much baseline effects. If there was any effect afterwards, after the 1 hour mark, it was very minimal and not noticeable.
Es la hierba de arcoíris.
Esa hierba de arcoíris. También cuando esto más se mezcla para no ser adictos. Para que no te quede adicto de seguir tomando ayahuasca como cualquier trago. Este te quita. Por ejemplo, 3 meses yo no tomo ayahuasca, sin necesidad de ayahuasca puede estar curando, porque esto no te deja de ser adicto. Y las personas que sufren, por ejemplo, mucho, no comen bien esto, tomas esto, te da hambre bastante. Sí. Yo le quiero bastante a esa planta. Y mis hijos también están trabajando por eso. Y esos trabajos ya de mis hijos, hasta ya han plantado.